What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Showcase. I got another tasty shmup for you guys today. Yes, I do love these, and there's been a good number of new ones coming out lately. And this is another one that came across my radar kind of randomly, but I've been enjoying myself, so I wanted to show it off. So this is Cloud Cutter. It's made by another very small team game, but they did some pretty impressive work here with it. This one kind of reminds me less of arcade shmups and more of certain shmups from the DOS era, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So, yeah, so the way this works, I've actually already completed one run of it on the normal difficulty. I've been replaying it through now on the medium difficulty, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about how this works. So, let's dive right into it here. So, what's the story in this game? There ain't none. You got levels, there's stuff in it what needs blowing up, and you blow it up. And that's perfectly fine, honestly. I find most shmup stories, with very rare exception, to be very cringy and kind of a waste of time. I much prefer it where it just goes, you know, here's crap to shoot, please go do that, and that's fine by me. So what's interesting about this is it is in 3D. This is actually made in Unreal Engine, which is pretty interesting because most shmups play on a 2D plane, and this is no exception, but they use the Unreal Engine, I think, to very great effect in this. I think this game looks really good. Everything is fairly realistic looking, but also has a little bit of a cartoon edge to it, and obviously it's a shmup. This doesn't play like a real air conflict whatsoever, because you see, you are a jet plane, but you've got, you know, lasers and endless missiles, and you can shoot things easily in both the air and on the ground, and you're doing it for points. So yeah, so there's a number of different levels in this, and each of them have very different environments with different challenges. Some of them are focused around just around bosses, but there are a number of different bosses in this that have different strategies that you have to do to take them out. There's a number of difficulty levels. There's scoring and online leaderboards with a combo system, and also there are additional challenges that can get you higher scores and sort of better star ranks, which is beating a mission while taking out at least 75% of the enemies, taking out all of the enemies, not getting hit, and not using any special weapons. And it's very hard to get all of those at once, I'll tell you what. And the no special weapon thing, it's a bit of a good and a bad thing, because it's cool to have a challenge like that, but at the same time, the special weapons that you get in this game are pretty neat, and when you're trying to go for maximum score, it's disincentivizing you from using them, so you're going to find yourself instinctively not wanting to use them very often. So I've actually picked up two of them right now. So here's one of them, which is just a time slow ability, and that was on the A button. I'm playing with a controller, though this can easily be played with a keyboard as well. And then on the B button, we've got this one, which just brings out this wicked powerful laser thing. Now, you see there, possibly on the right side of the screen, something mapped to the right trigger. And that's actually not a special weapon, that's a secondary weapon. So you can use that as much as you want. And the way that it works is it sends sort of an overdrive bullet out. You see this sort of, I'll show you here, see this sort of, that blue thing that's shot out? Yeah, that's a single shot that does extra damage to one target, but it briefly stops your main gun from firing when you use it. It's very brief, and you might think to the point where it doesn't make a difference, but when you're trying to deal with crowd control, I would really not recommend using that too often, because it can really make it difficult to control large groups of enemies. But if you've got an enemy that's about to leave the screen, who's almost dead, or just a big target that you're trying to focus on, especially during boss fights, very helpful in that respect. And there's other little score incentives as well. There is a combo multiplier for taking out, you know, more enemies with not getting hit. You may have seen something pop up there called squad kill, so there will be groups of enemies, usually but not always planes, that come on the screen, and if you take out that entire squad, then you get a bonus for doing that, and you get larger streak bonuses as well. So in many ways, it's fairly, you know, a lot of these are fairly standard shmup mechanics, but this game does a few things differently that I do find interesting. So you're going to see that I don't know why, the original game I wanted to compare this to was the fantastic arcade game shmup series Raiden. It's kind of a classic, but not really. This to me plays a little bit more like some DOS era shmups. So you see you get this really cool perspective change sometimes. I really, that's another way they use this engine to really great effect. So it plays a little bit slowly, and some people don't like that. Some shmup people really like, you know, ultra high speed, bullet hell style shmups. This is not that. So if that's what you're looking for, you're probably not going to get it here, though it can provide a similar amount of challenge on the higher difficulties. Now, this plays more like some DOS era home computer shmups. So if those of you who were around in that era, think stuff like Raptor or Tyrion to a certain point, things like that. It's challenging, but it's not crazy. It's not frantic speed, if you know what I mean. And then you see we got this cool thing down here where I've got to take out some ground targets quickly while I come down. Really, really like this. I think this is a really cool effect. I think they did a great job here. So yeah, it's a bit of a slower paced game, but things, especially on higher difficulties, again, can get really, really frantic. You'll have a lot of enemies on screen that are shooting at you at once. You really have to pick and choose how you're going to attack your targets to try to take out as many things as you can, but without absorbing a lot of hits, especially if you're going for that no-hit bonus, which I've literally never gotten yet, even on lower difficulties. It's rough. But you see, this boss is actually a building. And it has secondary targets that you can take out to make your time a little bit easier, or you can just focus on the boss directly if you want. And some of the bosses are like this. Some of the bosses are, there's weird, like, mecha robot things. There's ships you have to take out. There's a lot of variety, definitely a lot of variety. And the environments are all quite a bit different. Some levels have extra little challenges in them, like things you have to avoid that you can't shoot. You know, there's a lot. There is actually a lot going on here. At the same time, they made a couple of choices that I would like to have seen done a little bit better. One really baffling choice in this game is that, and this isn't even by default, you can't turn it off, your main attack fires constantly. There's no primary weapon fire button. It's just whenever you're active, it's shooting. A lot of shmups on mobile phones play that way because of the limitations of how mobile phone controls work. And I don't know why they have that here, because you're going to find yourself in some levels with not a lot of enemies on the screen and not much happening because you're kind of in a transition period and you're just sitting there going that with nothing to shoot at. And I understand that in a lot of shmups, people just tend to see, I'm not pressing anything there. And it will sometimes stop shooting when you're going through. See, this is kind of an interesting little boss challenge here. During some scripted sequences like this, it will stop the auto shooting, but other times it doesn't. And I just find that a little bit baffling. Like, I understand that in most shmups, people just hold the button down, and I wouldn't mind if they just made an auto shoot menu option. Oops. Right, don't touch the plane. All right, let's check out another one here. And I wouldn't have a problem with that if they gave you a toggle, but they didn't. There's no auto fire toggle, it's just auto fire all the time. And since you only use a couple of the buttons in this, I don't know why they just didn't make an option to fire when you want. I would really prefer that. I'd honestly prefer to hold the button down for the majority of the level than have this thing just sitting there firing and making that repetitive noise when there's not much going on. But that's a minor thing. This also is lacking some fairly standard shmup tropes, and this I don't necessarily mind. So you have that secondary weapon that I talked about, and the sort of special weapons that you can get. There's no screen clearing weapon, so most shmups, particularly Japanese ones, have that, you know, everybody knows it. It's that you press the button and a huge bomb happens and it clears out everything on the screen. It's kind of a save my arse button, you know? This doesn't have that. Now, I don't necessarily mind that. I don't think that has to be in every shmup, and I think the secondary weapons or the special weapons in this that can be optionally used are actually cool, and I think that's a good replacement for that mechanic, but some people, I think, are not going to like that. And I just find as well, like I said, that if you're going for top score and top bonus, the game punishes you for utilizing those special weapons, and that, I don't know. I feel like that's a disincentive. You know, you took the time to make these cool special weapon systems. A couple more of them would have been nice too. I believe there's only 3 or 4. A couple more of those would have been nice too, and disincentivizing people from using these cool things that you design just seems a little baffling to me. I know they can use them if they want, but let's be honest here. The point of most shmups is score attack. You're trying to get the best score you can and improve your score. That's why these games are... This game is actually fairly long as shmups go. Most shmups are only around 5 or so levels. This one's quite a bit more. I can't remember how many, but it takes well over an hour to do one run of it. But at the end of the day, the real thing with shmups is not that they're crazy long, it's that you want to replay them repeatedly to get the best score you can. And disincentivizing people from using special weapons rather than maybe trying to incentivize them to use them more strategically, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a misstep, because the way games like a lot of Japanese shmups do it that have those screen clearing options is sometimes they'll give you bonuses for having extra ones left over. Oh, I got an achievement for, I think, destroying ground structures. Nice. They'll give you bonuses for having extras, but in most cases, you're actually incentivized to use them in the levels at strategic points, i.e. when you have the most enemies on the screen, especially in bullet hell games where there's so many enemies on the screen that you really can't possibly take them all out. There are times where if you are smart and strategic with how you use those things, you can maximize your score with that. But in this, you can't do that. In this, you will actively take a pretty big hit to your overall score at the end of the level if you choose to use the special powers. And I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. I think they could have better incentivized people to just think of and strategize on the best times to use those items in the level to maximize their score rather than penalizing using them. But that's just me. It also would have been kind of nice to see some customization options, maybe some weapon, you know, the ability to change your default weapon, or even get skins for your plane, or pick a different kind of plane that maybe has different statistics in terms of firepower or speed or armor or things like that. There's only one plane in this and you really can't change anything with it. Again, a fairly minor thing. Not a lot of, you know, a lot of shmups don't have that, and they don't necessarily have to. That's not what this was a very small team, and that's what they chose to, you know, they chose to focus their resources in this way, and that's perfectly fine. If this game does well enough, that would maybe be a cool addition for a sequel, would be to add in either some customizability or things like that. The other thing that's a little weird as well is you really got to kind of get used to these levels, because you may see here that train that was coming up, for example, you could take out all of the cars on it except for the caboose and the engine. And as nice as these levels look, one of the things that's a little strange is that it's often very hard to tell what is a target and what isn't until you shoot at it. There's a lot of there's a lot of levels where there will be like two of the same looking object on the screen. One is background and one is a target. And you don't know it until you kind of pan across the screen and try to shoot at everything and see what has a life bar. That's a little weird. You're going to have to, if you're going for maximum score and you're going for leaderboard position in this, you're really going to have to spend some time and memorize the levels and figure out, okay, this is what's going to be a target in this segment and this isn't, so you can position yourself to get the most shots on targets as possible. It is a little strange. See what I mean? Like, there's these vehicles here that I can take out, but that big container thing, I can't. This building here that this gun is on, nope, can't. But as I get up top here, my goal is to take out this dam, and I do that by shooting the top of the dam, but the rest of it doesn't have any impact. See, it's just little things like that. I don't expect them to put big glowing, you know, hitboxes on what is a target and what isn't. And it's perfectly normal that everything in a game like this is not destructible. It's just a little strange that everything blends together perfectly. So, and maybe that was their intent, was that you've got to learn what are your targets and what aren't, so that you can, you know, you can best place your shots, and that they wanted you to have to figure out what is background and what isn't. It's just a little odd to me, is all. But overall, I've been enjoying this a lot. You know, the set pieces like this, pretty darn cool, I think. I just blew up a bridge and flooded a huge valley that probably had a lot of people in it. But, so here we go. Now, I did play this again on normal difficulty, so I got 3 out of 4 things here, and you see that mostly fills the star, but you've got 2 additional difficulties. You've got normal, medium, and hard, so there's a lot you can do in that respect. And yes, there is leaderboards. The leaderboard functionality, a little bit limited, in my humble opinion. So you can see where your friends are, you can see what the top 10 is, and you can see where you land, but you can't scroll this. So all you get to see is the top 10 and where in the position that you fall. You can't see how big the leaderboard is. You can't scroll it around and go to different pages to see what people have in it. The ability to scroll the entire leaderboard would make a lot more sense. I'd like to see that. Another feature that might be nice for a sequel is a replay function. I really love these shmups where you can do a replay of somebody's run, so you can see a recording of how they attained their score, so that, one, you can confirm they weren't cheating, because that cheat engine on PC games is a real thing that happens a lot on leaderboards, and also just so that you can get strategies from it. You know, and I like the fact that they make the high scorers put themselves out there so that you can see how they did it, and you can go, okay, well, if I want to best this, I've got to learn how to do better than they did. So you stare at the replays and you figure out strategies and you try them out. I love that type of thing. I know that's not the easiest system to implement, and again, very small team, so I'm not faulting them for not including in this game, but that if they get the opportunity to make a sequel, and I hope they do, that would be another nice addition. You know, a few little things here and there, well, little things maybe in the scope of developing a sequel, at least, that I think could add a lot of value and keep people hanging on to the game longer. You may have seen other power-ups there. Of course, you can power up your main gun throughout the course of the levels by picking up those options. You want to do that. Obviously, it does more, you know, does more good. But like, look at this. We're playing in a lighting map, or not a lighting map, a night map. But the lighting actually, I think, looks really good. I think this is a very pretty shmup. And I think this very small team did some incredible stuff with the Unreal Engine, especially with those perspective shifts that we saw and things like that. Like, this was a surprise. You know, I kind of want to play every new shmup that comes out on Steam, because even though I'm bad at these games, I love them. I always have. It's just my arcade gamer, you know, my raised on arcades brain. And I just like to see what people are doing with them, and I kind of like to support the cause, you know. Shmups have been getting a little bit of a revival the last few years, and that makes me super happy. And it's really nice to see developers taking, that are not just, you know, tiny one-man Japanese devs taking a shot at these things and putting their own spin on it. You know, this is not your typical bullet hell shmup, but it's very fun in its own way. It can still provide a lot of challenge and still provide a lot of, you know, something a little bit different maybe from what you're used to, and something still very enjoyable. So yeah, this is a good one. If you're into shmups, I would grab this without a second thought, if I'm honest with you. I think they did a real nice job, and it's something I'm going to be putting some more time into. I have a massive shmup collection on Steam. It has its own category in my Steam list, and I keep basically all of them installed. And when I have a few minutes to kill one day, sometimes I'll just pick a random one and fire it up and spend some time with it. And this is definitely going to go on that list. So yeah, that is Cloud Cutter. Again, highly recommended. I'd like to see this as well come to more platforms. I believe it's only on PC at the moment. On the consoles, this would be great. Shmups on the Switch are a fantastic time. So see, this is a little side objective that you can get here. It's a short little thing where you just got to avoid the searchlights. Touching them makes you take a bunch of damage. It's harder than it looks to get through here without taking anything. I'm not sure if it's random or not, but hey, it looks like I got through it unscathed that time, though my plane is hurting a little bit. But yeah, I enjoy this a lot. It's a good indie shmup. For this developer's first game, they done good. And I hope I've given them some ideas on how they could improve it for the future. If they do decide to make another one of these, I hope it does well enough for them. And yeah, so that's going to do it for this one, guys. If you did like what you saw here, please do all the YouTube things, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so that you can know right away when I put new content up. And leave a comment down below. You know, what do you think of this? Are you a shmup player? Does this interest you? What do you think they could do to improve it a little bit? What are other good PC shmups that you have? Drop them down below, because I really want to know. Because I may be missing some of them, and I think there's more cool, I'm sure there's more cool things I could try out there. So I would love to know about that. And as always, if you want multiple variety streams a week, including games you won't necessarily see on here, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction. We got a great community over there, and I have a lot of fun doing that, so I'd love to see you there. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you on the next episode of Indie Showcase. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take it easy.